And one more time, hello everyone. I'm going to start sharing the doc to today's meeting. Okay, I think we start from ish, uh, issue triaging. I see it was Nitish and Ryan. I'm not sure if you want to discuss anything, Nitish or Ryan.
Um, I wanted to bring the proposal that Leo has added in the discussion, but I think since it's added in the discussion, we're good to go. Nothing from my side so far.
Mhm. Let me check if Ryan is here. Yeah,
Yeah,
Ryan
I
is
didn't
here.
have any major issues pop up this week.
Okay, in this case, we can proceed and select who is going to be triaging next week. Let me deselect Nitish and Ryan. Actually, I want to volunteer myself. I have not done it for a long time. I have time this week for sure. So yeah, unless someone wants to be primary, I can be primary next week. Okay, sounds like no competition. Anyone wants to be secondary?
You can put myself
Like,
as secondary.
Thank you. Okay, and we can move on to topics. I guess it's the very first topic, Nitish. Yes, so proposal. I'm going to just open proposal, and I guess Leo, maybe you want to present.
Yeah, this is a discussion we had into it this week, and just a little bit of background why this is becoming a necessity for us. So recently we enabled the ephemeral access extension in the entire company, and even after sending notification to every team, there are still some of the teams who are uh, not knowing the new feature or how to proceed with getting their access elevated. So this proposal is to get the banner feature that currently exists in Argo CD and improve that feature and add a good amount of capability on that, on top of that. So Katie is our product owner at Intuit, and she's the one who wrote the proposal. So basically, my goal is to present the proposal to this group, see if we have any objections in moving forward, and if not, yeah, update the proposal to accept it. So basically, today we have that. The banner feature in Argo City. So that is available by Argo City admins. They have to go and update a config map. So it's an entry in the config map and the banner is going to be there. So users can, the admin can provide a text and can provide a link, and the banner is going to be always available um, in all views in Argo City UI, unless the user clicks the close icon on the top, and then it disappears for that user. So this proposal is it has some additional features. So the first one is to only display the banner is in some specific situations. So to be able to control, for example, I want to be able to display a banner for production applications, for example. So I want to check for an existence of a specific label in the application resource, and then show the banner there. The banner needs to be configurable to be always present or to be able to be hidden by the user, right? So if the user clicks hide and then that banner disappears forever, or I want to be able to make the banner persistent so the user doesn't have that option. So this is one capability we want to introduce. The other one is to have something similar to, when there are new features added to Argo CD, we want to be able to drive the user to the new features. And this is just a suggestion. So sometimes you get into a new web app and then the web app drives you to the new features, like highlighting the components. So you click the component and you open up some description on what that new button does. So it's part of this proposal to think about something around those lines as well. So yeah, I don't want to go into every and read the entire proposal here. Folks can read on your own. But the main ask, if there is a strong objection in going that direction, and yeah, I'd like to hear the opinion of the other folks in the call.
Michael raised a hand. Go ahead, Michael.
I think one thing that ought to be added to the proposal, I know we're just looking at the conceptual part right now, but at some point we need a full description of what the configuration would look like. It looks like there are a number of knobs here, like is fraud, is not fraud, is that some generic thing that we allow people to inspect an application. In general, this feels fairly heavy for the problem described. Basically, we have the ephemeral access feature. Users are surprised that it exists and that they don't have access without it, and we need to make them aware of it. I feel like some UI element within the ephemeral access experience might be sufficient. People get used to seeing little stars, little things that are like, hey, this is new. Maybe click a link, go to documentation. Something that's contextual to that feature, I think would potentially be more effective and require less, basically, UI code and functionality. I worry about this being a big feature for a very narrow use case or set of use cases.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a narrow use case. So the feature is to support Argo CD as entirely, not for a single feature, right? Oh, and speaking about the ephemeral access, and that's exactly the problem we had, Michael. So we already provide, as part of the extension flyout, documentations and links to external docs, and try to drive the user as much as we can in that UI. And that wasn't sufficient. So we want the ability to have a more, visually appealing notifications to users.
I'm curious.
I don't think, to your point, I don't think we need to go and implement every single feature the proposal suggests. I think there's room for negotiating the scope, right? But yeah, the problem is adding the new links and directions in the extension itself. It was already proved to be not very effective.
I think I had one question. So in this proposal, the content of this banner will be configurable, right? It's not like we're going to prepare for every release content for.
Potentially can be used for releases, like if we want as Argo maintainers to, on every release, to highlight the components that are new in the UI. I think it's a nice touch, but I don't think that's the main driver here.
Yeah, definitely could have. So we have the release note that are more for the operators that update Argo to a new version, but there's nothing for the user experience. So if this is done eventually, there could be a process where people that change the UI or make changes that affect the user experience, that would be one place they can document it in Markdown to say, hey, here are the change that happened to your experience, and then that get displayed after upgrade the first time a user open Argo, like many other website have after an upgrade. If you use VS Code, whenever you update VS Code, you get the what's new pop-up and you get all the new features. So something like that.
In general, I found those to be potentially UX melt. I think that if a feature doesn't communicate its presence effectively by itself, that's kind of already a problem. But I do understand like UIs are complex. They have deeply nested functionality that may be difficult to find. So I see the case for it. I just think it's probably best to exhaust all other possibilities before we go for a top level communication tool.
I'm thinking of implementation details. Sounds like we actually don't have a good like server-side store for this information. Like we can try to use Redis, but not everybody uses setup as Redis, and like it can be like flushed. We can use some Kubernetes object, but it's maybe like there are some race conditions and some issues like that. I don't know. Also good storage. Seems like at least best I can come up. This is something like use like some local browser cache. But then it sounds like for actual announcements, we can still implement them using config map, just like today. Just maybe have like a list of things and yeah, history you can fetch from that. And also we can use like local browser cache to find if a user have like dismissed it or seen before. And we can still report metrics like user clicks. We can like export some data point like Prometheus, for example, or something like that. But in general, like I think banner is gonna make sense. So if I can come up with like non-heavy implementation for this, I'm like up for having this work done. Like I probably I don't know if I can do like I can be helpful myself, but I can definitely like help brainstorming.
Okay, and I guess I would also support it because I feel like we even existing banner, I think we broke it and it kind of looks ugly. Isn't not ugly, but the alignment is not perfect, and this feature hopefully will help to get it back in shape and even improve. Yeah, I don't see any objections as well.
Okay, there is a comment in the chat about taking a look at what workflows does. I think it's a very good comment. If they have something similar, maybe we can bring that idea and incorporate that in Argo CD. I think it's important to double check what they did there. When you say exhaust other possibilities, Michael, what do you mean exactly?
I think my preference would always be for very contextual callouts. So for example, in GitHub, they have a new, I think, PR files view experience, and they have a little, an icon that draws attention and a link at the top that says view the new experience, link to documentation about it. You mentioned that in the ephemeral access experience, we have links to documentation from within the flyout that appears. I think that the persistent toolbar item for ephemeral access could have something that draws attention to it. For say the first few months of the feature being in Argo CD at a particular company, it really draws attention to it and says like, this is important. Click the link, understand the documentation, and something that isn't hidden behind clicking an initial button to get a flyout that you then have to navigate the docs through. That's just one suggestion. Basically, I think we should look at and exhaust options that don't require a top level, potentially fairly heavy feature. And also just like more email blasts, more talking in meetings. Like I don't want to solve a communication problem with code if it's actually just a communication problem.
Yeah, I don't see this as a heavy feature. I think as I said, I think we can move step by step and not implement everything added in the proposal or suggested in the proposal. But to Alex's point, we have already a banner feature, and that feature is lacking, right? So I think this is probably an opportunity to take that feature and improve that and take that to the next level. So is there any objection in gradually improve that feature and bring, new capabilities to it, and not maybe tackle this entire proposal in one shot, but break it into smaller proposals and go in that direction. I think for example, adding to it, we have a internal solution where we have to, look internally in the Argo City code base and do some internal magic to be able to display the banner for production applications. I think that is a must for Argo City to provide out of the box. I would love to have something like that well established in Argo Cities where we could conditionally say for specific Argo City applications with this label, this is the banner I want to be displayed. So this is one initial proposal that comes on top of my head.
I think, I think incremental improvements or fixes on the banner feature make a lot of sense. For the like broad banner feature, I think that we can potentially go even bigger than that while avoiding too much code change. I think by attaching like a class to a top level element based on some application condition, like the presence of a label, you enable the built-in CSS, custom CSS to target that selector and make whatever mutations people want. So maybe instead of having a banner, they want to have a slightly different color in a production application. I think we can take advantage of just attaching a class as a way to enable that. But anyway, small. I like small incremental typically.
All right.
Okay.
I guess, yeah, anyone else, any comments to provide on this?
And so the next step would be to actually create like a proposal with code changes.
Yeah, I'm gonna discuss internally and check with Katie if we can provide a more, narrow kind of proposal with specific features that we want to add and improve the existing banner feature.
Right. And I see a raised hand, Sebastian.
Because I think for some of the ideas in this proposal, a banner wouldn't be sufficient from the UI experience. I believe like a small button somewhere, a general, like it's stated there, what's new button, you just click on it. And then you have another like modal that pops up where you have like, for example, announcements, features, new features or something. So you could because this would give you the possibility to incremental build it. So maybe at the beginning you just put just announcements and then you have a link to somewhere where you could publish it, or maybe you want to add a blog or something. I mean, this gives you like a lot of possibility for like changing the traffic to some other sources. And also
That's
would give you the possibility to fetch other stuff, like it said in external integration. If you just have a general, like, you know what I mean, like a modal, and then you could do different things there. I mean, it wouldn't be a banner, but it's just one button. You click on it, and from there you have like an announcement where it's what's new in the docs. So you could even say, what's new in the docs? What are new features? Or what are the announcements? That was just an idea in my head.
I think the problem with that is having the people click on the button, right? People can always go read the doc. You can always put that information somewhere, but we need to highlight to the user, put it in their face that, hey, there's something new that you should know about. Having a button that they have to go and click when they realize after the fact that, oh, the experience might be different, and they're asking themselves, like, why is it different? Did something change? And then they have to go, they have to read. I don't think that's the right way to proceed. That's kind of a reactive solution instead of being proactive and inform them beforehand.
All right, I think now we're getting into like discussing details, and I propose to just do it in a PR with proposal.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So no
Thank you.
objections. Let's move to the next one. So Jonathan added link to a pull request. Okay, so I'm not sure if Jonathan is here.
I am. Hello.
Hello. Yep. So let me open the description. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
All right. So there's a bug in Argo right now, where if you are, if there's a CRD conversion webhook, and the service to serve that webhook is down, Argo thinks that every app in the cluster is unknown, and it has to do with enumerating the resources, in the cluster cache. Enumerating those resources fails when it can't get the CRD because the CRD conversion webhook is gone, and that actually affects every app across the entire cluster. We ran into it at Sumo Logic with an issue, with crossplane provider. Some configuration thing is basically the problem is that any individual change to some kind of a crossplane provider or something can tank the whole Argo cluster for everyone. And this fix is a really like ham-handed approach to try and deal with that. And I don't like that it depends on specific error strings to try and figure out like, is this the thing that we know breaks things in this case? So not a huge fan of the approach here. And honestly, a lot of it was like, hey, Claude, there's this issue, and I'm not entirely sure where to go to fix it. But there's a test in here that I added that does seem to indicate that the issue has been fixed by it. So if anyone has a better approach in mind for how to go about fixing the problem of Argo becomes useless whenever a single conversion webhook goes away, I would be happy to hear that. And otherwise, I submit this.
I want to support the problem. We already in the past we had issues with extension APIs, and it's kind of the same thing. So if someone install an extension, but I'm saying Kubernetes API extension, and then if server that's baking it is down, Argo was not working, and we added support for it. We just had a very similar check to say, if list fails and the error looks like something, then Argo just proceed. So that would not be new. And basically, same problem existed before.
Is this is conversion webhook error a new function implemented as part of this PR?
Yes, yeah, it is. It's
Can
just
you
a
show
string
the
check.
function?
Yeah, it's just a string check.
Yeah, that's
It's not great.
ideal. Yeah.
If
Yeah, we
someone has
had
a better way for me to identify that specific condition, I've not really worked in here before. So if we have a better way, I would be happy to have that feedback and run with it immediately.
I'm personally less concerned of error string check because it's probably like interface how you like check errors between interfaces and applications, but I'm a bit more concerned about correctness of Argo CD. Like if it operates in this limited state, can we run into situations where we just like do some edit, which is like just makes cluster state even more invalid or something?
So we should be able to propagate that like unknown status only to apps that have a reference to the CRD that's broken.
You don't know what apps are in a or what resources are in an app until you list every resource on the destination cluster, because any resource can be the child of a resource that's managed by an app.
Gotcha.
But I think you're right, because I believe we only convert to do this conversion if that resource is managed by Argo CD itself. Because if I'm not mistaken, so we have these resources from a cache, and then Argo CD tries to do like a get on a same version that's in Git. And so this will happen only if application is managed. Sorry, if resource is managed by application.
It could also happen
That-
when you warm the cluster cache, I think, though, because you do all those initial lists.
Hmm.
Can we, for that pull request, list what we think might break, and then if someone can run locally, just take a screen capture and test those different cases and show what the experience will be like when that happens for the different applications? I don't think we can really reproduce it with an end-to-end. That would be nice, but at least knowing what the impact is of this pull request is extremely hard just from the review, and I think that's why it's not getting reviewed. So having like more tests on actually the different code path or the different scenarios that would be impacted by this would be helpful, because even just reading the issue, it's hard to understand what the experience will be after the fix.
Still on the error validation, I think if this error is returned by one of our functions, I would prefer to have an error type defined so we could validate on that specific error type instead of string check. Problem with string check, we know, right? So if someone changes that string, your logic is broken. If another error is returned that contains that string, the logic is broken. So I think we should avoid that and use error types as much as we can. And if the code is ours, if the code is coming from a library or somewhere else, we had situations in the past where we pushed the error type in the library and we consumed in Argo CD in order to do a proper error validation.
I think there's a general problem here that Andrew hinted to, which is we failed to collect cluster state completely, but maybe we got most of it, and yet Argo CD decides to become a potato because we failed to retrieve certain information. Super common case is pagination token on lists expires because API server is slow, or you just have a lot of resources. That only happens on one resource type, but Argo CD is just like, well, I can't populate cluster cache, so I can't do anything. I think that there's the potential for a mode that we set the cluster cache as like tainted and say, this is a partial cache. You can expect like your UI resource tree to not be complete, potentially other problems. We communicate that up through the UI and various other experiences, but we basically allow Argo CD to continue to function. In order to go that direction, though, I think we have to really think about what are the potential side effects of using a partial cache, and mainly, are there any security risks associated with using a partial cache? Once we're there, I think we don't have to worry nearly as much about how we check the error, because if we do string matching and we just throw up a warning and say, hey, we think something's wrong, but we're not totally sure, the error checking can be slightly off and it's still okay.
So can that be a discussion for later? As in, like, when you say we need to look into the, like, we need to see what is the security aspect of working with the partial cache. Is that something that we want to have that discussion sometime later?
I mean, in order to get this moving, I think we have to have it sooner rather than later. At first blush, I can't think of a security issue. The worst thing I can think of happening is that certain resources simply don't show up in the resource tree, which means like you can't run actions against them, you can't edit them via the UI, etc. That's all exclusion of activity. I can't imagine a situation where we allow something that we should.
But I think like we can start having issues like, for example, we want to refresh and sync application, and cache is essentially a source of truth for what's in live state. So if you like skip some resource from cache, for example, then like for example, Git sees, oh, a resource is there, so it's a new resource I have to create. So we kind of need to be careful how we isolate that like bad resource, so we don't completely skip it, but yeah, we maybe mark it like specific resource stay in that or something. Yeah, it seems really difficult, and yeah, I agree with Michael that we need to like think about this problem like holistically. But I'm a bit scared because I feel like there would be a lot of foot guns in edge cases. But yeah, but I'm open to like just participate in further brainstorming of this.
You just made me realize that something John said earlier, actually we can take advantage of. Maybe instead of tainting the whole cache, we store the fact that like particular resources are missing. Because if I'm in an application where I look at the Git resources and I say, okay, I'm supposed to be deploying a cert manager resource, but the cache is saying it wasn't able to gather the state about the cert manager resource, then we can mark this application as like truly broken. We're not going to let you sync, we're not going to do auto sync, et cetera, or whatever state. But that only happens for applications where we explicitly are operating on that resource. Then we fail more gracefully for applications that aren't directly using a tainted resource.
Yeah, I mean, if it's per resource kind, that makes life a bit easier. It sounds like the hooks are actually gonna be per resource kind, if I understand correctly. So yeah, maybe it's actually, yeah, this is bad. And like watches are also like going separate watch per each resource kind. So yes, I see some potential for like moving forward here.
Danica, you want to say something?
Yeah, one more angle I wanted to ask was, so if there is potentially anything wrong with the cluster cache at the moment, all the applications, whether the resource which is affected is directly managed by Argo CD or not, if it is breaking the cache, like the whole cluster goes down. So if the cluster cache is broken, what is, like, in an ideal scenario, what is the way for users to find out that their cluster cache is broken and that they need to take an action about it? Because, so like the other angle that I was trying to say was, at one point of time, I thought maybe it's by design that it is for users to act that, hey, there's something wrong with the cluster cache, and please take a look at it, so that Argo CD can start working as expected after this. And if we want to work with like a tainted cache, then do we want to rely on the settings where we see the status of the cluster as the only place for users to see what the state of the cluster cache is like?
I do think a requirement of having that solution, Michael said, is to surface that to the affected user, but another thing is to surface that to the Argo operators, so either through metrics or logs that can be monitored. So metrics would be very important in this case to know whenever there's a cache error. But good point. That's a requirement for the solution, in my opinion.
Makes sense.
I wanted to. I'm looking at the stack trace, and I want to explore another theory that maybe it's simpler. Like this particular bug is easier problem, and I hope that cache is correct in this case. And the problem happens only when controller tries to reconcile this particular one application. And I guess I'm just proposing I will try to work on this PR and try to reproduce it. And if this is the case, I hope we could just fix null pointer exception or nil pointer dereference error.
So I did try to reproduce this in a different, like there's another linked issue. So I did try to reproduce it, and it does impact the cache. So it's it doesn't. I can list down whatever I faced when I was trying to reproduce it, but in one of the scenarios, it does impact the whole cluster and the cache.
I believe it impacts all applications because if are you saying it impacts all applications in that cluster, regardless of it if it references? Yeah, I guess I'm hoping that devil is in details here. I'm just hoping that maybe there is like 10 applications, one is affected, and then when controller tries to reconcile this one application, it just crashes, and then it's kind of down and it affects everything. So I'm hoping to find something like that. But yeah, if I run into a situation where it is Michael, it's the case that Michael is describing, where cache is in a bad state, and then we kind of trying to, and there is a danger that Argo CD just don't have data to work appropriately, then kind of I would give up. But if I find there is this simple solution, I'm hoping, yeah, we can just fix it. Yeah, so my hope is that we just have a nil dereference error somewhere, and it's related only to affected application. And yeah, so I guess I'm even thinking, why do we even care what kind of error it is? Like, if like no error should crash controller. It should just, regardless of the error, I guess it should gracefully handle it. Yeah, so I'm not looking for solution right now, but I'm interested, want to try to help.
I put that check in there just to avoid changing existing behavior too much for what is a kind of a fairly narrow failure case. But if we decided that we wanted to populate the cache in a different way, then we'll do that.
I don't know if it's easy. If you have time, maybe you could attach a YAML file that register this conversion webhook. It would save me time. If not, I can just Google it and find some conversion webhook.
I am on vacation for the rest of the week. So if it is something you need on Monday, then I will have a look.
Thank you. Okay, I don't think we can solve it right now. I propose to move on. We have 4 minutes. And yeah, maybe we can discuss one more issue in the next 4 minutes. I believe it's this one. So the Anand Joseph added the link, and so it's an issue that talks about supporting ignore differences as a resource annotation. Let me see if Anand, are you here? Okay, I don't think so. In this case, maybe we can talk about this later, and we can talk about this issue, Nitish or Reggie.
I can bring this up. Thanks, Raji, for writing this on the notes. So this is actually an issue where the Argo CD application is going to be stuck in a progressing state when it actually deploys a pod that has a restart policy set to never or on failure. So from looking at the discussion, I created a TLDR as well, read through the comments, and as far as I remember, Jesse replied that this is actually the intended behavior because any resources that has like restart policy set to never is like assuming it's a job. Argo CD assumes that it needs to get the job done before it can mark the overall application status as healthy. So it's actually an intended behavior, but the user has mentioned an approach to tackle this in order to make sure the application state is not stuck in progressing, is by actually introducing an annotation, which when set to a Kubernetes resource, uh, and that resource has a policy set to never, we're going to make sure that we skip that resource. I mean, we return the actual health status and not make sure it's stuck in the progressing state. Although this was never brought in the topic, but I see the author has already raised a PR for that. So just want to get some thoughts on this.
I have opinion. I think this is a good use case for custom health checks. I think custom health checks could help, and I know we have like one caveat. It is impossible to have custom health check that affects only pods that has a particular resources. And so instead of adding like support for this one narrow edge case, I would improve custom health checks. And so the problem with health checks right now, health check must return a value, regressing, degraded, or healthy. And if it doesn't return anything, it kind of Argo CD crashes, not crashes, but it says there is an error. And I think if we make a simple improvement and we support returning empty string, and then empty string means empty string from custom health check, if it means custom health check do not know what health is, and it needs to fall back to, let's say, built-in health check, then we could easily support this edge case.
There's also an annotation which is called ignore health. So you can specify that on a specific resource, and the health of that resource won't propagate to the application health. That might fix this without, I mean, you don't get the degraded, you don't get the healthy or any kind of information if the job is suspended or not, but you don't affect the health of the application. Reading the issue, I'm not sure I understand what's the real problem.
That's even better than no code changes needed.
Yeah, I mean, if we have the ignore health annotation, then probably we may not require to add separate annotation for ignoring that.
Well, then it's a solution, right? Nice. Since we discussed it, maybe Nitish, maybe you can reply on the PR so we can get,
for sure.
One PR closed.
Sure, I'll do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. And we just ran out of time. I'm glad we discussed the topic. Okay, I will move the remaining topics to the next meeting. And Nitish, do you want to say something else?
Yes, I know we are out of time, but just want to let that the last discussion item, it's actually, I think, a very small PR. It's about adding the CLI scoped approval role for Argo CD. So if anyone gets time, please go through the changes. I see Michael has already left a comment on that, but would love to know other people's and other maintainers' thoughts about the same. So yeah. In other words, this PR is actually adding the scoped approval role for CLI. So if I go through the changes, if anyone has the Argo CD approver CLI role, so any changes in the CMD/Argo CD directory, they can eventually approve those PRs.
Right. Yeah, thanks for bringing attention to this. Don't have to discuss it now, but I guess discussion will happen offline. All right, let me stop recording, and bye everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
See you
you.
again next week.
See you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.